Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Main Street Business Podcast. My name is Mark Kohler. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Matt Sorensen, who apparently got a haircut yesterday. So if you're watching on YouTube, you could be the judge of the massacre.
Yeah. I was just complaining about my hair. Okay, I just have a little moment. Don't worry. Okay, and for all of you listening on the podcast and you can't see it, it looks great. Okay?
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that.
Hey, my hairstylist listens to the podcast, so
okay.
I want to give her some compliments and kudos.
Oh no, yeah, I don't want to blame her. I'm sure you were like,
yeah,
this is what I want.
She's got to work with. Yeah. I mean, she's doing her best.
It's an uphill battle.
Worker.
Yeah. Was she's Bosley's daughter, Bosley or whatever? All right. Well, welcome everybody. We try to keep this light. If you're new to the show and you saw the topic, buying your first home, does Dave Ramsey have it right? Ooh. Am I going to explain that? Or?
Yeah, you got to explain that because, Mark likes to battle with Dave Ramsey, and we love Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
Maybe you don't know who he is. Really a good advocate for good financial management, getting out of debt. But sometimes he goes a little too far. But otherwise, we love him. I just want to say that. So, Dave, if you're listening, it's okay. We can disagree on a few things.
Yeah, that's right. And we do. He has saved the lives of millions of people around the country. And for a lot of people, paying off your home, saving up for every little purchase you make, cutting up your credit cards, he's a lifesaver. However, our counter argument is if you're a business owner, you're going to need a credit score. Hate it? Hey, credit card companies are evil. I'm with you, Dave. I'm with you. Should I be using a credit card to max it out and take a trip, for spring break in Cabo? No. We absolutely want to have our emergency funds and be saving. But if you're going to build wealth, which is another class of people, a different type of person that may not be Dave Ramsey's target market, you're going to need a credit score. You're going to go into debt, good debt that creates income. Business debt isn't always bad. Buying a rental property that cash flows with a reasonable amount of debt, not going overboard, is very powerful. So, and buying your first home with some debt, I'm okay with that too. Dave Ramsey may have a differing opinion. So that's all. So that's the end of that. We just want to let you know if you're a Dave Ramsey fan, we're not here to beat him up. We're going to give you our perspective on buying your first home and some ideas. I've got a wonderful story that just took place in the last 2 weeks that I think will help bring this to light as well. So there we go. Is my disclaimer? Am I good?
Yeah. And I think there are situations where it doesn't make sense to buy a home. But we want this for the person that's never done this before. That's what today's really about. If you've never bought a home before, or maybe you're getting back into the housing market, you've rented in the past. It's a tough market right now to get into. We'll talk a little bit about that. But what should you be thinking about financially, tax-wise, income-wise? What are the considerations?
I'm going to cut you off. I want to say this. I think this podcast is also for some of you parents out there or awesome aunts and uncles that are mentoring a niece or nephew or a child. I bought my first home 30 years ago. I was grateful to do that. But guess who helped me do it? My dad. And it was a duplex. And I bought it when I was a freshman in college. And I learned how to be a landlord. And oh boy, the stories. But I think many of you don't realize what programs are out there that can help your kids get into a home and help defer some of that freaking rent you might be helping them with. I mean, there's some good stuff here. So,
yeah, and I think one of the strategies I'm going to mention too is turning that home into a rental. It's one of the things I've done with homes of mine. I don't like to sell them. Why sell them?
Yeah,
just you already own it. You've got a mortgage on it. Just turn it into a rental. Yeah. And that can be some great success there. We'll also go over selling your home too. What are the considerations there on the back end?
Yep. Okay.
There's some good tax perks.
Yep. Now with every podcast, we'd like to do a little tax and legal tip that might help some of you in a unique way. We have a lot of listeners that just listen in at least for the tax legal tip. Now I've got a little legal tip, Matt. Can I go first? Would you be okay with that? Okay. We used to have a little cool guitar riff. Wicka, wicka, wicka. Legal tip. But we don't anymore. So I just
a substitute.
That's as good as it gets.
Okay. All right. I missed the old one. I don't know why.
Yeah, I wonder why. Okay. So here's my legal tip. And I've had 2 phone calls on this just in the last week. So I thought this might be a good legal tip. The 2 situations that have come to me from some clients are partnership agreements and a partner pursuing a project that the partnership is not thrilled about. For example, let's say Matt and I are going to partner up and open a restaurant. And in fact, what kind of restaurant would you open, Matt? If you were going to open a restaurant, what would it be?
Let's see, teppanyaki.
Oh, that's right. Matt has a dream of running the teppanyaki grill. That's right. He can make.
I'll do the volcano.
Yeah.
I'll do the egg roll joke. Roll the egg.
Yeah. You've mastered the volcano. Didn't you figure out what
I've made one I've done it at home a little bit on the little griddle. It's pretty pathetic, but
do you go the choo choo?
Oh yeah, I do the whole thing.
Okay, you're amazing. Your kids must love you.
My kid, they were not impressed. My kids were not impressed.
They're like, let's go to Benihana's, Dad, please.
Yeah.
Put us out of our misery. Okay, so Matt and I are going to open a restaurant, and we're going to open a teppanyaki grill. For those that have not been there, that's where you've seen it in the movies. You sit around a grill, maybe 10 people in kind of a C-shaped layout, and you watch this very talented person throw their knives around and spatula and cut stuff up, throw things around. It's cool. Okay. So we're going to open a restaurant. Well, in most partnership agreements, now this is why you open an LLC. You do not do this on a napkin at Denny's the day before. You don't do this on a handshake. You don't do this with an email. That's when lawsuits start. So let's assume you have a good partnership agreement, a typical LLC. We get both partners on a phone call with an attorney for $800 and a few filing fees. You got a legit LLC with an operating agreement done right. And if you need to talk for more than an hour, we bill some hourly time, but 90% of our clients are done with $800 or so. Okay? So if you're going to form a partnership, people, that's my first point. And we've got prior podcasts on how to partner. Okay. Enough said. Well, in that partnership agreement, 99.9% of the time, there's going to be a clause in there, or several clauses, that say something like this. Matt and I have a fiduciary duty. We have a responsibility to do what's best for the teppanyaki grill restaurant. We have a corporate opportunity doctrine that states if an opportunity for another grill across town comes up, we've got to bring it to the partnership. We have the partnership non-compete terms that might say, you can't go out and open up another grill, Matt, down the street because you think you're a better grill master, So there's going to be a variety. Any provisions come to mind to you, Matt, that might be in like the opportunity, fiduciary duty, competition?
Yeah, well, just on that topic, or are you talking about outside of that?
No, just saying on that topic. Like
just on that topic.
Because I had,
Yeah, you got to define, like, are we locked down? It's because some people, let's say in the real estate context in particular, that get together, it's like, well, obviously I could buy my own real estate separate from this. We're not locking each other down to just do real estate deals together, are we? Mm-hmm. Or are we not? So you that's got to be said.
Yep. That was one of the calls I had this week. So it was a real estate developer with some partners, and one of the partners went out, as a partnership, all development deals have to come before the partnership. Now, they can buy their own little rental down the street, but development. But one of the partners went out and said, hey, I found this development deal. Do we want to do it? And all 4 partners said, nah, let's not do it. So this other partner said, well, I'm going to go do it anyway. Well, in some partnership agreements, if the partnership turns down the opportunity, the other partner can go do it. Others say you can't do any developing unless it's with the group because we don't want to send the wrong message to the community or whoever we're branding. And are you playing off our partnership name and all these things? And if just on the restaurant thing, I may be able to go open a burger place, but I can't go open another teppanyaki grill. So I've had 2 calls this week, another business that was a service business, and one of the partners had ran off and started competing. Another one was a real estate brokerage. That was on Sunday. I've had 3 calls in just this week. Sometimes those things happen where it's meant to be for the podcast. So anyway, there was a realtor that left a brokerage and said, I'm going to go open my own brokerage. And the broker's like, whoa. We got a non-compete here. Whether he can enforce it or not is a whole other question. We'd have to check with Bobby Axelrod and whether Taylor could run off and do his own thing. But I'm just saying. So my legal tip is make sure all the partners, you and your partner, when you sign up for that Teppanyaki Grill restaurant, define what each partner has to do for each other to protect the investment, what they can and cannot do outside of the scope of the partnership, and make it clear. Have that tough conversation up front because it prevents a lot of lawsuits later and hurt feelings.
And a lot of times there's an expectation that you guys have, but does the document reflect that? Because later when there's pressure on it and there's someone making money possibly that the other one's not, then there's going to be a rub. It's just going to happen.
Yep.
Does this mean I get the tax tip?
Yeah, and I want to say one last thing on the legal tip. Yes, before we go to tax tip, I've got a college student or two that follow my podcast that said something this week, and I want to put it in a basic standpoint. Let's say you're going to just do some screen printing in your dorm room, and you're going to make some T-shirts. Or let's say you got an idea for a social network, and you're just a student at Harvard thinking, hey, let's have people hook up and date. And a couple guys from the crewing team had this idea as well, and everybody's got ideas floating around. Could be a recipe for a movie called The Social Network. But the point is, even in college, when you're just doing little projects, you got to have this open conversation before you shake hands, because you don't want your buddy down the hall making shirts in his dorm room too, competing with you. So, okay, tax tip. What do you got?
All right, tax tip. I had a client ask this morning about taking early distributions from a Roth IRA. So Roth IRA, you put the money in, you don't get a tax deduction, but it grows and comes out tax-free at retirement when you're 59 and a half. It's like the only thing you can use to make money tax-free, not pay the IRS anything, and stay out of jail. It's pretty cool. So, what if I want to get the money out early before I'm 59 and a half? This client wanted to take out earnings. They want to take out what they'd put in their contributions, which is going to do $6,000 a year, plus the gains that he had made.
Oh my word! What's this guy?
Yeah, now
Cowboy.
Yeah, now here's the rule on that. If you want to take out the gains, the earnings you've made, you pay tax on the gains at ordinary income rates. So let's say you put in $20,000 over the years, and now that account's worth $50,000. So you have $30,000 of gains there. That $30,000 is going to be taxable to you as ordinary income. Plus, you're going to have a 10% early withdrawal penalty on it, $3,000 in this instance. Now, the other $20,000 that he put in as contributions, that's going to come back to him. No early distribution penalty of 10%, and no tax. So remember, it's really easy to get out the contributions you put in. It's not painful. There's no tax. There's no penalty on it. You can always grab it out. That's one cool thing about the Roth IRA. But if you want to pull out the gains before you're 59 and a half, it's going to hurt. 10% penalty, plus you got to pay tax on it. There you go. That's the tax tip.
You know what? Your tax tip is going to play into our topic today a little later.
Oh.
I'm going to just...
Okay.
So the suspense is building, everyone. Yeah.
I know where you're going.
You do? You do? Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll tell a little story about a yesterday meeting in my neighborhood on that very topic.
Oh, okay.
It plays to our topic at hand.
I don't know where you're going then.
Okay. All right. No, you don't. Yeah. No, you don't. What was it? Wasn't that Tommy Boy who goes, yeah, you were this? No, you weren't. No, I wasn't. He's getting on the bus. Or was that was Billy Madison, I think, when he's getting on the bus.
Oh, yes.
Wasn't that?
Yeah, that Veronica Vaughn,
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we used to date. No, you didn't. Well, a friend of mine and her dated. No, they didn't. Well,
no, that was a classic. Oh, okay. All right. Excuse me, everyone. Okay, so here is the topic of the day. I think I can say definitively that and I'm anxious to see if Matt agrees, that the first big investment all of us will generally make in our lives is buying our first home. Now, meanwhile, you okay with that? Okay.
Yep.
Meanwhile,
can I note something on that?
yeah, go ahead.
Or you want to keep going? I mean,
Well,
I'm
I was just going to say this.
Okay.
Meanwhile, it may not be your first investment. I want people to start building a Roth IRA even in their teenage years and saving for college or little things like that. But this is the first big investment. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, being an attorney and doing estate planning back in the day, it was really interesting to see people, the typical millionaire next door type person, okay, that they bought a home, they lived in it for a long time, they paid it down, they put away money in a retirement account, they maxed it out over 20, 30 years. And it's like, and they didn't have a huge income, okay? They were not huge income earners. But it's like, oh, I have $1 million net worth. I have something to work with here that I could retire on. And so, the nice thing about a home is it's, Mark talks a lot about like kind of these savings app and getting in a habit of saving. A home is something where it's a habit of saving too, because you're paying down the mortgage. I mean, you get appreciation over time too, but it's something that's a habit that forces you really to save and have something of value build up over time.
Totally concur. The counselor concurs.
All right.
Now, I will add this. Okay. Now, everybody, this is concept stuff first. Then we're going to get into some how-to. But for some people, you go, well, why? Why would I buy a home? Now, it is true. For some of you that may be in an urban location, renting is cheaper than buying. When I was living in Southern California, the amount of down payment I needed to buy a place was off the chart. And that could be in the Chicago suburbs, any of the top 10 cities, and New York, obviously. Sometimes buying a home is something that happens in your 30s or 40s. It's way down the road. But I would say for the majority of people, especially out in rural areas or small town America, Main Street America, which is a huge follower. Maybe we should name our podcast Main Street Business. For all of you out there on Main Street America, buying at home has a couple major benefits. One, you quit paying rent to someone else. Most oftentimes, if you do it right, your house payment should be equivalent to or less than your rental payment would have been. Now, if you're buying a nicer home, you don't want to overbuy a home. That's Dave Ramsey's point too. Let's not overbuy. And paying down the mortgage, that's another topic. But for all of you that are just getting started, why would you do this? Is so you quit paying rent. You do get a deduction for the interest you pay if you're itemizing your tax return. And you get to write off property taxes. But you're building equity. That property is going to go up in value over time. Historically, real estate has averaged 5 to 6% per year. You're not going to sell it in a year or 2 or 3. We hope you keep it 5 or 7. And as Matt said, he's turned some of his homes into rental properties after he moved out. So this home could stay with you the rest of your life. It builds equity and you quit paying rent. Any other good reason? I mean, just when you, I don't know.
I mean, I think when you look at a home, and even with housing prices being really high right now, I think that's a big thing that scared a lot of people is, well, housing's so high right now. Well, when it's your home, you have a certain built-in cost of living. Like you have to allocate a certain amount of money anyways to living somewhere, whether it's paying a mortgage or paying rent. Now, I guess you could live with family or, bum on your friend's couch or whatever it is. But I mean, as a responsible adult, you want to be independent. You're going to have a built-in cost of living. Now, look at your area. If that's $1,500 a month, let's say it's $1,500 to $2,000 a month, that means you could be that same payment could be a $400,000 home.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, now let me give an example. Okay, time for an example, if I may.
Yeah.
And I asked Jack and Allison, my amazing daughter Allison, twin daughter to Sydney, who's been on the show before as well. She's a realtor of mine down in Southern California. But Allison's still going to college with her husband, Jack.
She's also your daughter, or she's a realtor of mine. She's your
Oh, well, I said twin
Anyway,
sister to Sydney. When I said Allison, twin sister to Sydney, I thought it was implied she was also a daughter.
Yeah, that's true. If I follow the logic there, it does check out.
Yeah, we don't want to get into the birds and the bees today with you, Matt, but twin daughters of mine, both, yeah, one daughter. Anyway, okay, so here's the deal. So Allison's still going to college. She's in a rural area, and they're a brand new married couple, no kids. And early on, because they live with me as a parent, from over the years, they've had to hear me over and over again. And after she got married, it didn't take me long to brainwash my son-in-law, Jack, who's a stud. But I said, you need to buy a house. And they're like, okay. Now, Dylan, my oldest son, we've talked about Dylan's home that he bought previously on the show. But Jack and Allie, this was new to them. So over the last 6 months, I've been drilling them, get a house. Because rent for a married couple in this rural area is around $800. So as Matt said, they're looking out there going, well, we're going to have to be out $800 anyway. So what can we do? So in a lot of rural areas around the country, there's what's called a RDL loan, typically through the state, that'll say if it's in a kind of a development zone, or it can be a term that's thrown out as well, where the state wants to see home building take place, they'll do a no money down grant. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll go to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the bank, and the state will say, we'll take care of the down payment, or we'll guarantee the loan. And so that's option one. I was like, look in these areas. We drew out on a map. And if you find a home in these areas based on student income, you could still buy a $100,000 house in a rural area. And we're like, well, we don't want to drive 20 minutes away or 30 minutes away. I'm like, okay, cool. Keep looking in town, knock yourself out. So they find a place in town, and it was actually pretty funny, Matt. They called me up and they're like, yeah, got one. It's a $300,000 house in town. I'm like, you ain't qualifying for that. What are you, crazy? Gosh. And they go, well, it's a threeplex, kinda. The basement's unfinished, and we think we could, and it's already renting. I'm like, well, okay. Pfft. Go talk to the banker. Here, and they had a realtor that I hooked them up with. So I'm getting to a point here. This is important, Matt. So
okay.
They go, okay, I know I can see him rolling his eyes if you're on YouTube. He's like, what the hell? Finish the story.
I'm not rolling my eyes.
Okay, you're good? Okay. All right. Okay. So they get to the bank, and the banker's like, well, the only way you're going to qualify if it's an FHA loan, and he goes, might be able to get you into a 3.5% down program. So you do the math, 3.5% on 300,000, we're looking at about a $15,000 down payment. It's pretty good. So they're like, we've been saving our money. Hence, we're going to come back to Matt's Roth tip. Mm-hmm. So they'd been saving their money, and I said, I think you guys could scrape together $15,000. I might help you out with $3,000 or $4,000 to get you over the hump. But 3.5% down, $300,000 property, it was already cash flowing $1,800. The upstairs and a little cottage and back was bringing in $1,800 for a total of $1,800. The tentative mortgage payment in their initial meeting was $1,600. So they, not even finishing the basement, the rent was going to cover their mortgage payment. And they were going to have to take the time to finish the basement so they could move in there and live rent-free. And this place is going to be worth $350 to $400. That was trashed. It was like, I swear there was a Trans Am up on blocks in the back. I mean, this was like the hood. But they did 6 loads to the dump the first 2 weekends, just cleaning crap out. And I think they already have $25,000 of equity. I couldn't believe the seller didn't take the time to do that. But the point is, me as a parent, I got my kids into a house, into Story, for rent-free, with a place that was a duplex or threeplex. They qualified for the loan on their own. I did not have to co-sign at all. They had enough savings to pretty much cover the down payment, and I'm just proud as can be. That is their first house. I'm so stoked.
Yeah. I mean, so that, they took it to the next level, of course, and not all of you have to do that. Okay. Don't think, you might have a spouse or other person in your life that's like, there's no way in hell I'm going to live in a place with tenants. Okay. And you're not going to sell me on that. Now, credit to Jack and Allison for doing that, because this is the perfect property that turns into a rental. When they want to buy the next home, they're going to keep this, right? And this is going to turn into the rental. So, okay, but I think for the, let's say you don't have any other rental things in there. It's just single family home or a condo, townhouse, whatever it may be. Okay, and this is suburbia. Okay, you're not getting the free RDL, or something like that. Okay, let's just keep it pretty straightforward. 3.5% down is what you said, FHA. Now, you might hear a lot of people talk about, you want to get 20% down. Why would you want to get 20% down? Now, if you were buying a $300,000 home, that's 60 grand you're going to have to come up with.
Yeah.
Why do you want to have 20% down? You want to avoid mortgage insurance. Okay. This is one of the biggest wasteful things you're going to have in a mortgage payment.
It's called rip off.
Yeah. It is a total rip off.
Dave Ramsey hates it.
Yeah. And for a good reason. Okay.
Yeah.
You are going to pay the bank. You're going to basically buy an insurance policy and pay for it every month. It's going to be hundreds of dollars, by the way, just for the right to own this property. And that mortgage insurance, usually it's going to take 7 years for it to go away, on your amortization schedule. And so on a $300,000 house, you might be paying a couple $100 every month out of your payment in just for mortgage insurance.
Now, on that note, this is why taking Dave Ramsey's route, he would say, if you want to buy a home, save your money, avoid mortgage insurance, buy within your means. And those are all great points. I totally agree. But if you're able to say, hey, 3.5% down, even with mortgage insurance, I'm going to be close to what I'd pay in rent, people, you're building equity. That rent, a good chunk of that rent payment is paying down your mortgage. See what's happening? Your property's going up in value slowly but surely, and the mortgage is going down slowly but surely. Even with no major appreciation or even a pay down strategy, which Dave Ramsey and we love that, right? Let's get this thing on a 15-year note. Let's do double payments once a year. Let's really ramp down that mortgage. Oh, I'd love that. But even with just a moderate pay down, you're going to be building equity every year, even with mortgage insurance, and still saving money. But I like that Matt brings this up so that you go in with your eyes wide open. Now, what's cool about a fixer-upper is a couple years from now, they're going to have 60 grand of equity in it, and they can refi.
Yeah.
And then
Yep. Yeah. And that's the great strategy, because I'm just ran the numbers here on a $300,000 mortgage. Okay. Your mortgage insurance monthly payment is going to be about $300.
Ooh.
That is painful. That is a lot of money your mortgage payment alone is just the principal and interest is maybe only going to be $1,300. So you're going to add on, and that includes your property taxes, by the way, or no, that does not include property tax. Sorry, your principal and interest on a $300,000 loan, basically 3.5% interest rate right now, assuming you put 3.5% down, $1,300. You're going to throw $300 out the window, also on mortgage insurance. Okay, it's not paying down your loan or anything; it's just going out the door. Now, like Mark said, you can refi later, so once you get enough equity to where you have 20% equity, you can refi out, get rid of that loan, remove the mortgage insurance. If you've heard the radio ads or seen the ads on the internet or social media, you'll see that all the time. Banks are saying, refinance your loan with us, get rid of your mortgage insurance, refinance your loan with us. This is what they're getting at.
Yeah. And Matt said it quickly, but I want to break down what he just said there. Remember, actually go back in time when I said, Jack and Allie's house payment's going to be $1,600, but their rent coming in on the two other units is $1,800. Now they've got to build out the basement, but that's going to build huge equity in this place because the appraiser did not value it as a 3-unit, only as a 2-unit. That's why I think this is going to be just a gold mine a year or two from now, and they'll have 100 grand of equity in this. But the point is, I said it was $1,600. What did Matt say? The mortgage payment was $1,300. The mortgage insurance was $300. So that $1,600 was already in that number. And some of you said, boy, that sounds like a high mortgage payment. It's because Matt just broke it down. That's that mortgage insurance. So think of, they finish the basement, they go refi, they might get rid of that mortgage insurance within a year's time.
Yeah.
And now they've added $300 of cash flow in their back pocket.
Yeah. Let's break it down even another step. Okay. So
Okay.
we have that $1,300 mortgage payment that's just the principal and interest. Okay. Now, if you look at this on the 3.5% rate, put in 3.5, 3.5% down also, that payment comprises $850 of interest, $450 of pay down of principal. So every time you're saying that mortgage payment, you're paying down the loan balance $450. That's like throwing $450 in a savings account.
Yep.
That is equity. You are growing value. That's increasing the value of your property because it's decreasing the actual loan amount. So when they were saying it's $800 a month to rent anywhere, even if you take out the rental income, if you look at it, they're basically throwing away $850 a month in the mortgage interest, but that $450 on top of it, that's actually paying down. It's going back in their pocket just for the long term, though.
I like what Matt just said. I'm going to say it a different way. I didn't even expect you to go down this path. Remember their rent in the area was $800 a month comparatively if they just went and rented somewhere. And someone may say, well, why are you going to pay a mortgage payment of $1,300 when you could rent somewhere for $800? Because they say, well, guess what? $450 of that $1,300 is going right towards the equity of the property. I'll get that back. So it's kind of forcing you to save, and in a very, very good way. I love that. Great point, Matt. Well, let's think. There's lots of ways to find a home to buy. You can even, a lot of times people will say, don't even go through the realtor market. Go through MLS because everything's been picked over by the real estate investor community by then. And that's true. And I love realtors. I'm a huge fan of realtors and brokerages. And some people, it's the best thing you can do to get the help of a realtor. Jack and Allie went through a realtor. My daughter's a realtor at Sydney. But some of you, if you have the skill set, can literally start going out and looking at foreclosed properties. Properties that from an estate sale. Someone died and the home hasn't gone on market yet. You might be able to find some property tax defaults. And there's lots of strategies out there that you can learn in a real estate investment community like Renatus. Matt and I both speak for Renatus. And so you could even find equity in a property. Matt Sorensen has said, you don't make money when you sell property. What is it, Matt, you say?
You make money when you buy. You realize the money when you sell it, but you make money when you buy, not when you sell. And I've stole that. That's someone else came up with that. But
I thought you said it.
I mean, I said it, but not true. Let me throw out another thing to consider too.
Okay.
We talked about appreciation of value. There's a few other things to think about. One is we obviously know the property is going to go up over time, right? Real estate goes up over time. Just let's take the median price of a home in the U.S. Okay, in the year 2000. Okay, this is kind of in the year.
Can we really use 2000 as any sort of metric? But
well, I mean, it was we didn't have the real estate crash yet. So, but 2000. Okay. I'm just saying. Let's say I'm just thinking about this in 10-year chunks. Okay, let's do it in 10-year chunks. Okay. Let's do 2001. Then I'll just do it. Okay, the average home price, $140,000. Okay. Let's say you held that, you bought the average home in the U.S. in 2001. Let's say you held it till 2011. Now, we did have a real estate crisis and crash here in the middle. But even despite that, in 2011, that would be $172,000. Okay? 172. You would have made money, right? You obviously held it. You had the benefit of living in it. You would have had to pay rent somewhere. You'd pay down the mortgage. Let's say that was in that example, $450 a month. And by the way, the longer you hold the loan, the more of your money that you pay goes down to principal than it does interest. Yeah. So it becomes more and more valuable the longer you hold it because you're paying down the loan more.
Yeah. Let me add to that too. He bought it for $140. It was worth $175 10 years later. That's $35,000 of appreciation, but you probably would have had $35,000 of mortgage reduction. So now you've got equity of $70,000 to $80,000 sitting in that house. Let alone if you have found something you can improve. That's just a home with no improvements.
Yeah.
That's just median home.
Now look at the value from 2011 till now. Average home price 175. Remember in 2011
Okay.
till 2020, end of 2020, last data, you're at about 310,000.
What?
Okay.
Doubled?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Average median home price. So now, so we know there's appreciation in the property, and so in a 10-year period like that, that's almost doubling the value of the real estate in that last 10-year window there. But here's one other thing I want to think about too as you're buying home. I think you want to be there for more than 5 years,
Agree.
maybe 3. Now you might have the strategy of, well, I'm going to hold it and turn it into a rental. So in that case, don't stress. But if you're like, well, I want to sell it to get the next house, there's a certain amount of cost built into that, right? You're going to have realtor costs of, let's say it's 5% right now. So on that $300,000 home, you know, you're going to have 5% cost. You're going to have, what is that, 15 grand
Yeah.
just in costs to sell it for commissions. And then you have maybe another 5,000 other closing costs. So you're going to have about 20 grand. So, but by the time you get mortgage pay down and appreciation over a few years, you may only break even. So there's just certain costs in selling. So I wouldn't be buying unless you're really in for more. I would say, as a rule of thumb, 5 years, possibly 3. You know, but that's another consideration to think about. Is there is a cost in turning over real property,
And I
getting
would,
your money back out.
okay. And I want to add one last, this is my story from yesterday that brings Matt's tax tip full circle, and probably the last point I have to make. So I was dropping off an estate plan for a good friend. He and his wife, they'd had some health struggles in the family, and they're good friends and family. So I drafted an estate plan for him, and I had it in a folder, and I was just on my way to the office in a big hurry, and I stopped by. And at the house, they had their college-age daughter who had just gotten married about a year ago. They were visiting. And I opened the door and handed off the estate plan, and they're like, wait, we've got some questions for you. I'm like, ugh. Okay. So I was grateful. They followed the podcast some, and I was honored. And they said, hey, can you ask us? We're opening up a Roth IRA. Where should we do it? I'm like, okay. This is not a 2-second answer. Let's talk. What are you guys doing? And da. And they were going to leave for the summer and do what a lot of college students do. They teach English in a foreign country or do summer sales for pest control or alarms. And that's what their plan was. They're going to be gone the next 4 to 5 months, earning big money, knocking doors. And I said, and they go, but we've already saved up about $12,000, but we haven't put it in a Roth. What do we do? And I say, okay, step 1, I want you to be buying a house. And I literally gave them this speech that we've just been talking about, a little shorter, but gave them this talk that we've been covering in this podcast. And I kind of blew them away. They're like, hold on. We were going to talk about a Roth, but now you're telling us to buy a house. And I said, now let's bring it both together. I want you to go put that 12 grand in the Roth right now before May 17th. That's 6 grand for each of you for last year. You go do your summer sales, make 50 grand, and put your 6 grand each for this year in there. Now you're going to have 24 grand sitting in a Roth. And they said, but you just told us to buy a house. And I go, yeah, but when you go to look for houses this coming fall, I'm going to come to part 2 of this. When you start to look for houses, you can pull out the 24 grand if you need it. And they're like, you can? Yes, you can't pull out the earnings, but you can pull out the deposits.
Yeah, no tax or penalty.
No tax or penalty. And so I said, now you're getting the best of both worlds. And their brains were like, and they were like, oh my gosh, the Roth, buy a home. And I said, now part 2, we are sitting on the biggest pile of deferred mortgages and foreclosures ever right now in this country. I was at a title company yesterday, Matt, in the state of Idaho, and I said, how many foreclosures has the county ran this last 12 months? 0. I said, where are they all at? On a desk or in a huge filing cabinet in a room at the county recorder waiting to foreclose. We've had 12 months of just regular foreclosures just pile up, let alone the COVID foreclosures of people not able to pay. And I go, how many mortgages are in deferment? He goes, over 30% of mortgages in this country are in deferment.
That high?
Yeah, that's what he said. Now, this is just a title company. Yeah. This is
I don't think it's that high, but it is higher. That is true. And I know that the consumer, it's the Federal Consumer Financial protection. I can't remember what it's called. But they basically went to mortgage lenders and said, hey, by the way, this moratorium's ending, but you've got to get your procedures ramped up for working with these lenders, and we don't want them to do any predatory stuff. You've got to work with them, try to make plans, help them get through it. Because on the other end, they do have equity. A lot of people do have equity because values have gone up, but there's going to be a lot of people who have no ability to pay anymore for whatever reason. Yeah. And so there's definitely going to be some chaos once this moratorium expires.
And let me say, a deferment means you're not going into foreclosure when the moratorium's over. It just means you kick the can to the end of the mortgage. You're going to have to make those payments. Deferment's okay. But the indication is, that's the point. There's some people that are going to go, I've been deferring and I still can't make my payments. And the banks have opened the door to foreclosure again. So I point to this couple was, go do your summer sales. This fall might be a buyer's market. So right now may not be the perfect time to buy a new home anyway. And they were like, oh. So I said, put the money in the
Yeah, and it may not be a buyer's market this fall, but it may not be the best sellers market in the last 30 years, which we're facing right now.
Yeah.
Sellers basically, they list it and they got 100 people at the door, at least here in Arizona.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
It's
like,
nuts.
overpriced. Everybody's offering, anyway. So, okay. Well, I was just going to make one last point.
Okay.
And then I'm done.
I'm done. I'm already done.
That was your last one?
That was my last point.
Right. I was just confirming because you did say that, and I was going to hold you to it. Okay. I get the last word?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, maybe. Depends on what you say.
Yeah. I know you too well. All right.
I won't do my best.
Now, here's the cool thing. When you make money when you sell your house later, there's a great thing called the sell of home exemption.
Woo.
Okay. Where the gain you make on your house is excluded. It is not taxable. So if that house that you bought in 2011 for $175 that you sell in 2021 now for $310, okay, you have $135,000 gain there, and you might have some realtor costs and eat into that, but you got $100,000 plus gain. Do you pay tax on that? Nope. Okay. For single people, you get to exclude up to $250,000 of the gain on the sale of your home. And for married people, up to $500,000. Now you've got to own it and live in it for 2 years. Okay, so you got to own it and live in it for at least 2 years to claim that exemption. But that's a little tax perk in there, get you some tax-free income when you sell it and make a gain on your house later on.
Love it. I'm done.
Okay.
I don't need to say anything. Right. That was so well stated. Just say amen. So, thanks everybody. We wish you the best. Don't give up. Keep investing. Keep a stiff upper lip. It's tough. We'll be here every week trying to give you little tips and guidance and support. We'll have another topic next week, and then I think our open forum will be 2 weeks from today. So submit your questions at mainstreetbusinesspodcast.com and just keep living the dream. Don't give up.
Yeah. See you then. Thanks, everyone.